Search for the district's next superintendent.
Our Bella Caracta tells us about the 4 choices presented tonight at the school board meeting.
The board has worked very, very, very hard, just not only this last week, but previous to that too. We've been very, very busy.
4 people prevail out of 26 applications for the Omaha Public Schools superintendent position, the person to oversee and serve more than 51,000 students. The first candidate is a familiar name, current interim superintendent of Omaha Public Schools, Matthew Ray. Ray was most recently deputy superintendent under the last leader, Dr. Cheryl Logan. He spent his entire 27-year career with the district. The next finalist is Tom Ahart, former superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools, which has about 32,000 kids. He served in that role for a decade. Ahart faced legal issues when an administrative law judge ruled in 2021 that he violated his ethical duty by keeping kids in virtual learning during the pandemic after the state passed laws regarding in-person learning. The next candidate is Christopher Bernier. He's currently the superintendent for Lee County in Fort Myers, Florida, which has nearly 100,000 students. Bernier started his post at the Florida district less than 2 years ago. According to local stations in Florida, voters passed a referendum just months after Bernier was sworn in to have an elected superintendent. Bernier did not want to participate in the election to stay in the position. And the 4th candidate, Luis Solano, is currently the deputy superintendent of Detroit Public Schools, about the same size as Omaha Public Schools. The district hopes one of these 4 people will be in the position for more than 5 years.
Thank you to everyone who's participated in this process so far. We really appreciate the hard work and the dedication you put into this.
On your side in Omaha, Bella Caracta, 6 News.
On Monday, the public will be able to meet the finalists and ask them questions during an open meeting at Buena Vista High School. Then public interviews conducted by the OPS board will take place on Tuesday. They say they expect to fill the position by the end of this month.
An update